All right, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at these California wildfires and talk a little bit about that today. I think I'm going to bring a little bit of a different take. There's been so many people talking about this in the media, so I don't know how different it's going to be, but just going to kind of try and get an overview of what the media has been saying about all this, and then dive a little bit into some of it. And hopefully, take a look at the bigger picture of what maybe is going on, what this all means, and how people should, respond to or act on things, like this, and hopefully give people an idea of how to respond to or react to situations like this. There's a lot of talk in the media, and I noticed there's a lot of talk on social media about this. And anytime anything happens now, we're kind of at a point where people are um, so distrusting of the government and of, I think, the reality around them because, and it's only going to get worse because of social media and because of these last few years, especially during the COVID era, of politicians, doctors, all different types of world leaders, and corporate America, and so many different people in society, especially Hollywood too, actually, lying to the people, not just the American people, but anybody across the world, in so many different areas. I think the people are just at a point where they're so distrusting, and there's really not too much wrong with that, except it leads to a bad place. Um, we were called by God to be to discern, to discern right from wrong, good from evil. It's what keeps us in line. It's what keeps us on the straight and narrow path. Um, it's what stops us from giving into curiosities and temptations that lead to sin. But so we want to keep that part of ourselves. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to become so distrusting and so conspiratorial that we don't believe in anything to be the truth. Because that's also what the devil wants, right? He's the great deceiver. He's the one that is constantly trying to throw us off the straight and narrow path. And the devil basically uses his greatest tool, which is chaos, to um, make everything out of order. You see, God created an order to life, and it's what keeps us in line. It's what keeps us, um, from doing bad things. Like I said, giving it to temptation and curiosities that lead to sin. Sin is chaos. Sin is you do whatever you want. You live by your own accord, your own desires and pleasures, and you're open to anything and everything. And it just slowly pulls you away from God until you get to a point where you have no compass, you have no moral compass, you don't know what to do, you don't know what you believe, you don't stand on any ground, you don't have any principles. So the devil loves chaos. It's one of his best tools to make people, fall away from God. And living with a conspiratorial mindset, um, we question everything, which is sort of normal. You're kind of supposed to question things to determine whether or not they're good, they're evil, right or wrong. What you don't want to do is leave out your faith, leave out God. God should be the center of your life. He should be the center of your decisions, your principles, what you believe, what you stand on. And the Bible should be your key resource to turn to when you do have questions about life. Obviously, you're not going to find every answer in there because It doesn't talk about every single thing in life. But for the most part, when it comes to, moral decisions or just knowing the right things to do, you will definitely find answers in the Bible. So I've seen a lot of people online coming up with so many different theories as to what this all is, and talking about what potentially caused the fires, what the plan is, what the ultimate goal is for whatever caused them. And a lot of them leave out divine intervention. So I'm going to tie that in hopefully at the end of this. But let's take a look at some stuff. We're going to look at a highlight reel of, basically a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing on social media, all in one video to make it a little bit easier. And then we'll take a look at some other, we'll break that down a little bit with some other stuff and tie it in the end to hopefully add a different perspective to this conversation. So let's take a look at this video here, and we'll start with that.
White and male. The California program aims to change that. Great. And how did that work out for you?
The whole entire hills are on fire.
Oh, there goes the structure. Oh, look at it collapse. There it goes.
Oh my God. We're out of the way. Hell.
Mandatory evacuation orders are now in place.
Feels like a scene that you would see in a movie.
Oh, you're telling me this crack leadership team at the Los Angeles Fire Department dropped the ball? Surely not. You're telling me the LA fire chief should have focused more on preventing fires than her commitment to gay pride?
Its leadership has since changed.
Surely not. You're telling me the campaign to hire fewer white men, more women, and more rainbow people?
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? So I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now. She's already looking at ways to change that.
Wasn't as important as making sure firefighters had enough water to put out fires. Surely not. According to the LAFD chief, there aren't enough firefighters. Who could have seen that coming?
113 LA city firefighters have been suspended without pay for defying the city's vaccine mandate.
The vast majority of fire hydrants don't even have a full water supply.
And I asked the captain, out of every 10 hydrants you attach to today, on average, how many are you getting full water from? He says little to none.
They're literally having to use traffic cones dunked in puddles. But it's just a conspiracy theory that there's no water.
No firefighters have told us that they are running out of water.
Same news station literally seconds later.
Well, firefighters have told me they have no water.
LA County, 72 genders, 0 operational fire hydrants. And why? Well, partly because they imposed environmental mandates that diverted water in order to protect a 3-inch fish.
As I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish, which is in other areas, by the way, called a smelt. And for the sake of a smelt, they have no water.
Yes, your home may have been totally consumed by raging flames. Your pets may have suffered agonizing deaths. Your life may never be the same again. But hey, at least we saved the smelt fish. Totally worth it, right? After all, no one could have predicted this anyway.
I talked to a fireman once. This is one of the reasons it freaked me out. And he was telling me, he goes, dude, one day, he goes, it's just going to be the right wind, and fire is going to start in the right place, and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean, and there's not a fucking thing we can do about it. I go, really? He goes, yeah, we just get lucky. He goes, we get lucky with the wind. He goes, but if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA, and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it.
Trump called it in 2018 and got mocked. But don't believe the firefighters when they're literally telling you there's no water to put out the fires. Don't believe those who claim DEI played a role. And don't believe anyone who's trying to politicize this by accurately blaming the people who were responsible for it. Far easier to just blame it all on global warming.
There are a lot of other issues, climate change.
Then absolutely no one in any position of power will have to take any responsibility whatsoever. The lack of accountability is truly shocking. But how is the media covering this? Thanks to Ground News, the sponsor, they now look like scenes from an apocalyptic disaster movie.
Okay, I guess let's park them on the street, yeah? And then, Dave, if you can just... Oh, my... us and try to set up a
But hey, at least as you desperately try to rescue charred photographs of loved ones from the remains of your home, you can peer out through the billowing smoke and ashes of your memories, safe in the knowledge that LA County has a diverse and inclusive workforce.
We are hosting our new employee orientation, and our focus is to teach our new employees for them to understand cultural competency, identify implicit and unconscious bias, and be aware of the importance of us having a diverse and inclusive workforce.
This utter clown, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, cuts $20 million in funding for the firefighters, is pissing around in Africa on vacation as LA burns, then has the temerity to act all stunned and victimized when she gets questioned on it.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
I guess not, but rest assured, Californians can get all the help they need at URL.
Right now, if you need help, emergency information, resources, and shelter is available. All of this can be found at URL.
In April 2021, Governor Gavin Newsom championed how wildfire response would be so much better under the Biden administration.
Support the Biden administration with resources, not just rhetoric, to help this collective cause. It's a different paradigm. It's a different framework.
Then had the nerve, after he ensured that all the water got dumped in the Pacific, to accuse Trump of politicizing it for criticizing one of the very policies that exacerbated the fires.
President-elect chose to attack you, blame you for this.
One can't even respond to it. This guy wanted to politicize it.
Don't forget about all those 3-inch fish that Newsom saved.
In order to protect a tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean. Millions and millions of gallons of water gets poured.
Meanwhile, Joe Biden's brave leadership was on display when he ensured that victims who had their homes and livelihoods destroyed got notifications.
We got notification yesterday their home was about to burn down.
Wow, I'm sure a lame text message from the government was of great comfort.
I'm going to break down again. That's what I feel. It's my whole life.
Everything was in there. So lost everything.
But it's not all bad news.
Good news is, I'm a great grandfather.
Questions as to how the fires started continue to swirl. Some blame hurricane-strength winds. Others, well, they've got their own theories.
Oh, I don't know how it started. We don't know how it started. There, winds.
It's all the gay people in LA.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
We got the
unacceptable.
But the true culprits behind this are the very same people Californians are now having to rely on to fix this disaster.
There's no water coming out of the fire hydrant. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here.
America's on its knees. Just swear in Trump now, for God's sake.
All right, so that was just a quick video to kind of take a look at a lot of what's been, playing on social media. A lot of people are posting the same content, so you see a lot of those clips on many people's channels. I think there was a good video because it was concise. It put everything into a quick, nice, short, less than 10-minute video, and you kind of got an overview. Obviously, you have to go in depth with things to really get the full scope and see what's going on. But it did kind of touch on a lot of, what people have been saying. One of the things that came to mind was that Trump had warned about this before, that it's mostly based on bad politics and their environmental programs that have caused the forests and wooded areas to be in the condition that they're in, that makes them susceptible to these fires. But to be fair, let's take a look at what Gavin Newsom had to say in this coverage of him apparently on site, you know, with the fires, being interviewed by CNN. So let's take a look at that.
What's the latest?
Well, 5 dead, likely more. Just complete and utter devastation. I've been in a lot of these fires, a lot, going back to Paradise, and this approximates Paradise. It's not a numeric, it's just a feeling, sense of loss, place, belonging.
Still no containment.
No, we're at zero containment. The winds have been a little bit more favorable, as you've seen in the last few hours. So we've got the helicopters back up. We've got some fixed wing aircraft. Out on the coasts, it's a little different. It's pretty intense. We have 23 aerial assets just at the Palisades, but a lot of them are not operational because of those winds. So it's a combination of challenges. That said, we've depleted all our resources. Northern California, we'd already pre-positioned on Sunday. Hundreds of personnel, special units, water tenders, dozers, engines, helicopters, and it wasn't enough. And now we're getting the mutual aid system, the EMAC system. Governors from all across the country are calling. Oregon sending a few dozen engines, and in Arizona, Utah. We're just grateful for all the support.
A lot of these firefighters I was talking to on the street, they've been working, 26, 27 hours. Are they that's just going to continue? I mean, there's enough folks here.
Yeah, I mean, we got a few thousand people working on this, and luckily we were fully staffed. U.S. Forest Service is staffed up traditionally at this time of year. Remember, we're in January.
It's supposed to be wet this time of year.
It's supposed to be wet. I mean, so this is anomalous. I remember Paradise happened in November. I mean, so there's no fire season in California. It's year round, but to have this level, the acuity of fires is without precedent. These winds are without precedent, and the challenge is these winds are going to continue on and off, a little bit less intense. Last night, you got 80, 90-mile-an-hour winds. These guys were just up there to try to mitigate the embers going 2 miles and getting just to go a quarter of a mile to try to save some.
What is the situation with the water? Obviously, in the Palisades, it ran out last night in the hydrants. I was talking to the firefighter in this block. They left because there was no water in the hydrant here.
The local folks are trying to figure that out. I mean, just when you have a system that's not dissimilar to what we've seen in other extraordinarily large-scale fires, whether it be pipe, electricity, or whether it just be the complete overwhelm of the system. I mean, those hydrants are typical for 2 or 3 fires, maybe 1 fire. You have something at this scale, but again, that's going to be determined by the local
authorities. Were saying part of it is the gravity, that it's these giant tanks on top of the mountains, which
well, they're going down. We were just with the team. They're getting the tenders down to Pasadena, filling things back up, coming back up. So it's just
are aerial assets now able to fly?
Yeah, they've been the last few hours, particularly helicopters. Fixed wings been up a little bit earlier, but out on the coast it's been a little more stubborn because those winds are swirling. The challenge is, you can see that they can fly. It's not a question of turbulence or anything else. It's just the mitigations flying all over the place. So it doesn't have any benefit necessarily. So we've got National Guard working the rattlesnake teams out there on the line. We're also trying to bring them in to supplement some of the law enforcement efforts as well. It's all hands on deck across the spectrum. The biggest thing, though, Anderson, that happened today, sincerely, and you can appreciate it in a community like this, to get that direct individual assistance with the major disaster declaration within 36 hours of this incident from the president was a game changer for this community, for small businesses, et cetera. So not that we're thinking about the next phase, but we have to be thinking concurrently about the next phase is how we rebuild this community. But right now, we're in this mitigation phase. We're in the public safety phase.
I hate to even ask this question, but the president-elect chose to attack you, blame you for this.
One can't even respond to it. I mean, people are literally fleeing. People have lost their lives. Kids lost their schools. Families completely torn asunder. Churches burned down. This guy wanted to politicize it. I have a lot of thoughts, and I know what I want to say. I won't. I stood next to a president of the United States of America today, and I was proud to be with Joe Biden. And he had the backs of every single person in this community. He didn't play politics, didn't try to divide any of us.
Finally, your message to the folks here, to this community.
I mean, we have their backs, and we're going to be back, and this is going to be a long recovery process. But look, we have residents moving back into Paradise, California. I've seen remarkable recovery efforts. I've seen remarkable sense of community, purpose, resilience. So, I'm not just playing the politician role of optimism. I really am long-term optimistic. But the devastation to hear people wailing and crying, concerned about their pet, their family, they're just bewildered about what they're experiencing. And again, not just experience. I was not talking past tense. This is happening in real time. 0% containment.
All right, so just to be fair, I like to let everybody have a voice because I think that that's really how we get to the bottom of things. We discuss it, and each side should be able to voice their facts, beliefs, opinions, whatever, so that the people have a chance to decide for themselves what the truth is that they believe to be the truth, and where they stand. So I think you have to hear from Gavin Newsom in this situation. And I don't know if a lot of, conservatives especially, but people who, everybody kind of plays politics on each side. When something bad happens and people are blaming the Democrats, the conservatives like to, stay in their echo chamber. And when vice versa, the same thing with the Democrats, they like to stay in their echo chamber. But I think everybody needs to be able to speak because a lot of times they'll tell you the truth. You know, right out there. They'll put it right out there, and they don't care that how it makes them look, or if it adds fuel to the fire of what the opposing side is already saying and believing about them. But Gavin Newsom was clear. He said it right there. 0% containment. This is a person who's basically the sole leader of the state, right? Every state has 2 senators and multiple members of the House of Representatives, but you only have 1 governor. So if there's anyone who is like the president of the state and holds the most power and is like the most responsible for everything when things go right or wrong, it's the governor. So Gavin Newsom is not totally solely responsible, but he's the leading person that's responsible because he's the only governor for the state. And he's, if you live in California, he's your leader. You elected him to handle things like this, right? Anything that happens that affects the state or, large areas of the state, the governor is responsible for that. They're responsible for taking charge, being a leader, and handling those situations. And he's coming out hours after this situation is going on and telling the people, his people who voted for him and the people who didn't, the people that he governs over, he's flat out telling them, we don't have anything under control. That's not a leader. So regardless of if you're a Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. Politics aside. If Trump came out and said, I don't have any control over a particular situation, I'm pretty sure MAGA people would be bashing him because they would expect him to do something. They voted him in as their leader, right? So you have to kind of see that these politicians, specifically certain ones, but Gavin Newsom's definitely on a list of people who are all about the politics. They're not good leaders, but they have the ability to sell you on that they could be or they are, right? He's articulate. He's good at reading a teleprompter or giving a speech or whatever, and selling people on a little bit of his dream here and there, or just telling them what they want to hear so that he can get the votes and he can get them to back him and agree with him. But it's moments like this that show whether or not you're a leader. Now, this man by himself is not responsible for acts of God. Like you can't stop a hurricane, and you can't, stop, things that are massive and out of our control. We also have to, focus on things that are in our control because there are many things that we don't have any power over, but we sometimes, because of our ego, we think that we do. But in this situation, you're the leader, you're the one in charge that the people decided to put you in charge. You have to take charge. You can't go out there and tell them you have 0% containment. You have to be doing everything you possibly can. Even if you only go from 0 to 1% containment, you have to be taking steps forward actively every second that goes by to getting this situation under control and helping as many people as you can. Now, that's what a leader's supposed to do. But these people play politics and they don't really care about the people. So the next clip I'll show you is a clip of, I guess, one of the mayors in California. And a reporter questioned her about what was going on, and this was her response.
For being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
Okay, so, believing that that video is true and accurate and not, edited or whatever, that's a real news station, Sky News. I think they're located in Australia or one of those eastern, countries out in that part of the world. Not anything in North America. I think it's somewhere out. I think maybe Australia. I could be wrong. But provided that that's not fake, a politician, and they're not alone. I've seen this happen before where they just ignore the people, ignore the reporters. That politician, clearly, if this is all true, does not care about their people. They're a politician, and they don't care about what anybody has to say, answering their questions. A lot of these politicians today, they're so far removed from where politicians were when this country was founded and in the early years of this, nation. They're very removed from the people. They think that they're entitled to their positions, or that they are, above or better than the people, and because they, have a position of power. But what they don't realize and what they forget is that the people voted them in, and the people are the one that actually hold the true power. Um, you know, Sometimes people have to remind them of that, and I think with the recent Trump election, a lot of politicians, especially on the left, did get reminded of that. No matter how much lying, no matter how much money they put into their campaigns and other stuff like that, and whatever other shenanigans may have went on, they were not able to get one over on the people. And this time, the people spoke and said this is what they wanted. But these politicians today, most of them, not just on the left or right, both sides, they don't care about the people. If you look back at like George Washington's time, and I think this was up until, I want to say after Lincoln, I'd say also up until maybe Teddy Roosevelt, maybe shortly after his administration. But George Washington, and it's documented, I believe, well documented, that he used to let people in the White House to sit with him in the Oval, whatever the office was at that time. It was a little bit of a different White House. He used to let them sit with him and tell them about the issues that were going on in their lives and the community and stuff like that, so that he could address some of those problems at a national level if it was possible, because he wanted to hear from the people. So at one point, the people were welcomed in the White House. Also, during other presidential administrations, similar things happened. It wasn't until I think the early 1900s that they really started, distancing themselves from the people and putting up, gates and fences and, having all kinds of security there to, obviously protect the president because after Lincoln was assassinated and other presidents had attempts on their lives, they obviously had to take the measures and do what they had to do. So I'm not saying that, today people can still walk into the White House and it should be like the past, but the politicians are so far removed from the people, they don't care about you. They look at you like you're a nuisance and you're annoying, and they just want your vote and to be able to wield power over you. And that's, clear from how a lot of these politicians act. But let's get Trump's take on this because he did speak about it before, and I saw a video of a reporter asking him. So let's get his take on this since he's coming in to office in the next few weeks anyway.
Provided to California for as long as it takes.
Well, it's very sad because I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish, which is in other areas, by the way, called a smelt. And for the sake of a smelt, they have no water. They had no water in the fire hydrants today in Los Angeles. It was a terrible thing. And we're going to get that done. It's going to finally be done. I got it done from the federal side, and he didn't want to sign it, but it's not going to happen again like that. There's no reason. Can you imagine? You have farmers that don't have any water in California. They have plenty of water. They don't have a drought. They send it out to the Pacific, and it's crazy. So what's happening in California is a true tragedy. I know those areas very well. I have many friends living in those houses. That is a true tragedy. Nobody ever thought. I mean, virtually Beverly Hills and areas around Beverly Hills are being decimated. The biggest homes, some of the most valuable homes in the world are just destroyed. I don't even know. You talk about a tax base. If those people leave, you're going to lose half your tax base of California. This is a true tragedy, and it's a mistake of the governor, and you could say the administration. They don't have any water. They didn't have water in the fire hydrants. They don't have water. And yet they have, the water comes from, where? Up north. And it comes down at levels, they get millions and millions of barrels of gallons of water that they have, and they send it out into the Pacific. For the Pacific, it's like a drop, it's nothing. But for California, we take care of the whole state. So what's happened is a tragedy, and the governor has not done a good job. With that being said, I got along well with him. When he was governor, we worked together very well, and we would work together. I guess it looks like we're going to be the one having to rebuild it. But what happened there, I don't think there's anything that I've ever seen quite like it. And the insurance companies are going to have a big problem because you're talking about big, big dollars.
So that's a leader. That's a leader. A leader steps up, takes charge, and says, we'll take care of it. We're going to handle it. I tried to help Gavin Newsom. There are ways that you can take care of this. Now, there are, like I said, a lot of conspiracies online. People are saying, who knows? This was the drones. This was government weather modification. They're shooting lasers, like what happened in Hawaii a while ago, where, every, property that didn't have a blue roof was burnt up by a laser, whatever it is. And all of it or none of it could be true, either one, right? But it doesn't matter because if the governor and the politicians did the right things, even if it did happen that way, it could have been stopped or avoided by taking, different measures in place. The firemen were saying that the fire hydrants are bone dry because the reservoirs or, whatever was depleted, that they could not keep up with the demand for the water, right? That seems like an issue that's pretty solvable today, especially in one of the states in the country. I think California actually collects the most taxes out of any state from their people, and the highest rates too. So they have the money, they have the resources, but a lot of these politicians are taking the money and they're putting it into ridiculous programs, or they're sending it over to other locations, and it's not being utilized in the state that it belongs to by the people that paid it, right? So there's many different things that they could have done. But let's take a quick look at this just for, backup of quote unquote credible news source and the firemen's take on, what happened with the fire hydrants and the water supply. So this is just a quick look at this. You can read the article on your own time. It's from AP, Associated Press. But yeah, they're saying right here, fire hydrants ran dry in Southern California just when they were needed most. And this is the firemen. So this article is from January 8th, which is just this Wednesday. So it's a current article talking about what's happening now. It's not from a different date. And they're saying that the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power was pumping from the aqueducts and groundwater into the system, but the demand was so high that it wasn't enough to refill 3 1 million gallon tanks in the Pacific Palisades that helped pressurize the hydrants, right? So many went dry, and about 1,000 plus buildings were engulfed in flames. So you can read that article on your own time, but the firemen are admitting that the fire hydrants failed to produce enough water to put out the fires. That's a failure on the politicians and the city officials. They're responsible for these, government agencies, right? They're responsible for these, the police, the firemen, all of the, city and state jobs that are through the government that the people pay taxes for. So they're responsible for maintaining all of that equipment, and that includes the fire hydrants and the water that supplies through it. But, there's other ways, other forms of technology, especially today, that can be utilized to prevent this type of stuff. So a lot of what people were talking about, even Trump, were saying that the forests are not properly well maintained because of droughts. They're dry, but they're also not taken care of. There's a lot of debris on the ground, which dries up and is easily ignitable with anything that can cause it. Now, there's also, I believe, they've shown that most of these fires are caused by arsonists, that they're not, from natural situations. But if the forests were properly maintained, that type of stuff wouldn't happen as easily, right? Everybody knows, plants or whatever that are wet, that are alive and not dry and not dead, are not able to be really put on fire, right? You can't burn a fresh tree for firewood for this very reason. You usually have to let it dry out for about a year, or speed dry it to dehydrate all the water out of the trunk and out of the core of the tree, so that it's dry enough to be ignited, right? So wet and well-watered plants can't really ignite. They can't go on fire. Now, also think about this. Why is this happening so much now? When California has always been a climate that is warm, the weather is pretty consistent year-round, gets a lot of great sunlight. There's a lot of trees and forests and wooded areas that could ignite. How come all of California has not burned down since the existence of America, or even before that, right? Especially back in the day when there wasn't as many people inhabiting it. How come and then we didn't have the resources we have today? We didn't have firemen, we didn't have fire hydrants, we didn't have all these different, resources for water supply and stuff like that. How come the forest didn't just explode with fires and burn down all of California throughout history? Because back then they were naturally being maintained, and they weren't like bad economic policies is part of the reason why, and Trump mentioned this too, the forests are in the condition that they're in. A lot of it is environmental. There's naturally flowing water that comes down, apparently, he says, from Canada through to California, and naturally waters the forest and the ground and everything, and that's being diverted to protect one species of fish, apparently, but probably for other reasons too. So environmental regulations are what caused the conditions that led to the fires. But if those conditions weren't in place, the fires would have never been able to get there. So it's almost like their bad politics, their bad policies are causing these issues to come up, right? And that's really a good example because this is what politicians do. Government doesn't fix problems. People solve problems. Entrepreneurs especially. Government only creates more problems. They end up trying to fix one thing, but it causes 2 or 3 more problems somewhere else. That's why it's so important that the people stay in control and that the government has as little power as possible, only to deal with things on a massive scale that the average person really can't deal with. But I want to talk about Elon Musk for a minute because he brought up a good point in an interview, I think with Bill Maher, and he was talking about an idea for um, a sort of a solution to this. But let's see what he has to say, and then we'll get into it.
At Congress the other day, talking with Chuck Schumer about AI. I'm very interested in this because you've been on this for years. I've always thought you were right about this. I think you're right about almost everything. I mean, let's have more babies and raise them on Mars. I don't get that, but okay.
Well, I just think we should be cautious about civilizational decline and we have plummeting birth rates most places. Yeah.
Right, and also plummeting resources. I mean,
resources will be fine.
But they're not
and
fine.
I know a lot about
They're not fine now.
No, look, I'm not suggesting complacency. But we do want to move to a sustainable energy economy as quickly as possible. But we're not in any danger of resource collapse.
But lots of people don't have enough food or water. Water, we will run out of water. They're running out of sand.
No, Earth is 70% water by surface area.
But you can't drink that.
But desalination is absurdly cheap.
Why don't we do it then?
We do. It is done.
You have a lot of free time.
It is done. There is a lot of desalination done.
Okay,
but there's plenty of water. This is not an issue. I want to be clear.
Okay, so he brings up a great point, right? That's an entrepreneurial innovation. Desalination. So desalination is basically you take the salt out of the water, right? California is a coastline state. They're on the water. They're on the Pacific Ocean. They have access to endless supply of water. But the problem is you can't water crops, or you don't really want to water the woods with salt water because it could do more damage, and then eventually things will die off and they won't grow there. So, salt can actually be worse maybe sometimes than the fires. But you can desalinate it. You can take the salt out of the water, and it's a very inexpensive process. And we'll just take a quick look at this article here because it talks about it. But this is a good reference because it kind of backs up what Elon was saying. Desalinating the water is becoming absurdly cheap. So Elon Musk said this in that interview, but then they get into it here. So also he said it's 70% water by surface area. What that means is by the surface of the water, if you look at the whole globe of the whole Earth, it's 70%. That's not including all the water in the depths of the ocean. So there's basically an endless supply of water because the water recycles, right? It condensates, goes up to the clouds, then it rains, comes back down. That cycle keeps happening over and over again. And the clouds desalinate the water, right? So when they go up to the clouds, they take the salt out, and the rain comes down as rainwater, which is pure water. It's water that you can literally drink, provided it's not overly polluted. But there's a process that happens there, a filtration process with the clouds. So we have an endless supply of water, really, if you think about it. Globally, around 1% of the world's drinking water is desalinated. So the water that we drink is salt water that's converted to regular fresh water, right? But in Israel, that figure is around 25%. So Israel, this tiny country the size of New Jersey, that does not have the resources that America has, is already desalinating 25% of their water to become drinkable and usable by their people. And apparently they desalinate 52.8 billion gallons a year. So you can read that on your own time as well. It's a website called Discovery Institute. Just look up like Elon Musk desalinating water, and you can probably find it that way. But it's a great point because it leads into entrepreneurs offering something as a long-term solution for this so that it doesn't happen again. Now, government can do this as well, but they won't, because anytime they solve a problem, they can't keep taxing the people to offer them temporary solutions, right? It's a game. They have a problem, they go out and ask for more money from the people or just tax them more without their consent. And then they use the excuse that, well, we have to fix this problem. But it's always just a Band-Aid, right? This is a great idea. So like I said, Israel, this small country, it's way smaller than America, population and everything, is already doing this with 25% of all their drinking water. That's amazing that this tiny country that doesn't even have close to the resources that we have is doing this. So why can't America do it for a very small portion of our water, specifically targeted at taking care of our forests, our wooded areas that they don't have fires, right? Now, this is a coastline state. They could literally set up desalination plants all across the coastline near every major wooded area. And they could even pipe in to the forests, to the wooded areas, to have the water, go off, and it's already been desalinated. Routinely, it could go off, maybe like a sprinkler system or something like that, to maintain so that this type of stuff doesn't happen again in the future. That alone would really change the game. Not to mention if their Parks Department and other elements of the government would properly maintain the forests, clean up the ground, stuff like that. Don't let anything dry out too much. If it does, get rid of it. That could really stop these type of things from happening. And if you think that it can't be done, it can. Think about our plumbing system, right? Our sewers run all across the United States underground and in every major city. Massive, massive pipes and tunnels that flow water through them. So if we do that already with our sewer system, and we've had our sewer systems in place for over 100 years now, then why can't this be done for a very small portion of the United States just to prevent these type of things from happening? But there are many other things that can be done too. Like Trump said, you could redirect the natural water that flows. Also, spring water. There's a lot of people don't know this. There's a lot of natural springs that flow underneath the ground. All you have to do is tap into those springs, and infinite amount of water comes out forever. So you can, there's even a charity company that does this called Charity Water. They go to other countries and they tap into the ground, into their natural springs. They put a pump up, it pulls the water from the ground up, and now the people have access to clean drinking water. Water, if you look throughout history, water sources, especially natural water sources, they change and grow the environment around them. You could take an area that was dead, no growth, no plants, no animals, put natural clean water there, and you will see life grow right before your eyes without any other human intervention, just that alone. Not to mention, if you look at maps of like history, wherever there were water sources is where civilizations grew around. Look at all the major cities. A lot of them are on the coastlines because people would go settle where there was access to water. But also too, look at like resources. Elon brought up a good point. We're not in a shortage of resources. The politicians do this a lot to try and make people believe that we don't have access to resources. The earth has an infinite amount of resources. America alone, look at Alaska. It's like 40% the landmass of the United States. It's a gigantic state. And we have barely scratched the surface of tapping into the natural resources that are there. So we are in no shortage of resources at all in America and throughout the world too. There's plenty of natural resources. We just need the tools and equipment and the people to actually tap into them. But the bigger picture I want to get to is really key. So I want to tie back in what I was saying in the beginning. There's a lot of people who have conspiracies. They believe all these different things are causing it, and there's this big game plan, and it's causing a lot of people to fall into despair in that they're thinking that there's a higher power of people, a secret group, cabal, whatever you want to call it, that has power over the people. They could just zap their homes, blow them up, and they have no control. And it makes people fall into despair where they lose their faith, right? So I want to kind of bring it back to divine intervention. You don't know, like, yeah, people can cause these things and God can work through people, but how do you know that a lot of this is not happening as divine intervention, right, from God? I'm not saying God is causing it, but throughout history, God has allowed plagues to take place on civilizations because they either were not obeying him or it was like a change agent. He needed to clear out the old and bring in the new. And it doesn't just mean of the people, it could be of the land, of whatever is going on there needs to be cleared away and rebuilt new and fresh. So let's just take a quick look at this as to what maybe what the Bible says a little bit about fire and what that might mean. So this is just a quick Google search, but anybody could look into this a little bit more in depth. And maybe in a future episode I will. But we've been doing this for a little bit now. It's about an hour. But God says that fire can represent. Well, the Bible says the Bible, not in so many words, but sort of a breakdown of what fire could mean based on the Bible. Could represent God's presence, like when he spoke to Moses from the burning bush, but it could also represent divine judgment, right? It could represent God's wrath against sin and wickedness. It could symbolize a spiritual renewal, right? The Bible says the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. The Bible mentions natural disasters, including fires, which are sometimes portrayed as acts of God's judgment. In Luke, John says he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. So that's just a quick little take on what the Bible says. I'm sure it talks a lot more about fire. I've seen it in there. And it doesn't mean that any of these apply to this situation. But a lot of people are leaving out divine intervention. Sometimes, like I said, God will allow a plague to take place because he's either casting judgment on his people or it works as a change agent to clear out the old and bring in the new. If you look at California said this in the past. I think California has had a record number, the most amount of baptisms in American history. And I believe was in one day, 12,000 baptized across the state of California in one day. I could be wrong about the one day part, but I'm pretty sure this is what I've heard in the past. This is from Washington Times. Baptized California is reported to be the nation's largest ever baptism, with more than 12,000 people baptized in events across the state. And just so you know, this was May 2024. Okay. So this is a recent article. It's not something from a long time ago. This just happened last year. So there's clearly a revival in this nation, especially in California. God is working there. He's moving people. There's a lot of people who are coming to Christ, and they're changing, their ways. There are also people leaving California because they just don't want to be there anymore with the bad politics and policies, and they're looking to go to a place where they can be themselves and believe in what they want and be around like-minded people, and they're willing to give up the nice weather and all that stuff for it. So, I'm not saying what caused this, but I am saying there are plenty of ways to prevent it, natural ways that we have, low cost, efficient ways that we have, and even, maybe ways that haven't been thought of yet. But that's where entrepreneurs come into play. We should really be encouraging and incentivizing entrepreneurs in America to come up with solutions for these problems because government will not fix them. All they'll do is keep taking your money and blowing it on things that they want to spend it on. The people need to step up and take charge and stop looking for the government to save them. The government's not going to save them. They're always going to be in a position because you have to understand the government's made up of people too. They're just regular people. And people are guilty of the same things, sin and pride and, jealousy, greed. They have egos, so just because they're in a position of power doesn't make them better than us. It makes them susceptible to the exact same things. So The people really should turn to God, keep their faith, and look towards entrepreneurship and the people of this country as to what we can do. Because America is a nation that is created of, by, and for the people. And we're the ones that ultimately, at the end of the day, have to take charge and fix things and be the change that we want to see in this country, not just leave it up to the government so that we can go back to watching football and playing video games. There are more important things that we have to do in this world. And America, as much as people, may not want to believe it or disagree, we are the light on the hill. We are the nation that other nations are supposed to look towards on how a nation should be, how a nation that God created as an example for the rest of the world. So don't forget divine intervention. Don't forget that you as an individual can do stuff and the people hold the power. You can't rely on the government. But yeah, don't take God out of the equation. Sometimes these things happen because nothing just happens. God allows everything to happen. Otherwise, if the devil had his way, he would have destroyed all of us already. God allows these things to happen. So we have to understand that this may also be part of God's plan. But the people in California, maybe need to see why this type of stuff is happening, whether it's divine intervention or bad policies, bad politics. Either way, they have to figure out what the problem is and then fix it. Don't just rely on the government. But that's it for this video. I just wanted to give a little bit of a different take. Hopefully, I brought a couple of new perspectives to the conversation. I did play some stuff that a lot of people were already talking about, but hopefully I brought some new insight. But let me know what you thought about the video. Put your comments down below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I like to respond to the comments. And don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share all that good stuff. It keeps the channel growing. And let me know what you want me to cover in future videos. All right, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son. And it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. We highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throw in your own, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, put on a better party. Health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. but it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag, and it says free, and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two, and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms: Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post, and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future, and I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.